Let's turn now to the ongoing fallout from lockdowns across the country as the arts industry takes another hit with Sydney's lockdown extended. Someone with first-hand experience is the CEO of the Cassel Group and theatre producer, Michael Cassel. Michael, good morning. Welcome to News Breakfast.
Good morning.
You've had it pretty tough over the last 18 months, and we've seen whether it was Harry Potter and the Cursed Child in Melbourne opening and then shutting, and now Hamilton in Sydney shut. What kind of impact does it have to have the opening and shutting and opening and the uncertainty of what's around the corner?
It's extremely challenging and, certainly quite traumatic for everybody involved to try and be sustaining a business, sustaining a theatrical enterprise, and essentially turning on and off a light switch as these shows come and go is proving most challenging and, financially difficult for those who, gain their employment through working on these productions around the country.
But people would look at those productions and say, well, they've been hugely successful. They'd have to be making quite a bit of money. So can you really cry poor if you're shut for a few weeks?
I wish that was the case. These productions are multi-million-dollar investments. Something like Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, despite playing for a first year when we celebrated our first year anniversary last March, is still yet to recoup its initial investment in the production. So to be at a stage where we are then reinvesting to get the show back up and running in February and then closing down for the first 5-day circuit breaker lockdown, to then return and then to be shut again for another 3 weeks. Each time we do that, it costs millions of dollars to be able to get these shows back up and running. And then we have the added challenges of reallocating our audience members through investing in buying these tickets and trying to sustain a box office where consumer confidence is proving challenging.
Yeah, and I guess for the cast as well, I was surprised to learn that even artists in highly successful performances like Hamilton during lockdown aren't being paid. So why is that?
So to be able to sustain these shows, we entered into a negotiation when we were renegotiating our enterprise bargaining agreement last year, and we had the benefit of understanding that we're in the middle of a pandemic. In order to sustain these shows for a long run, we have instituted a stand-down provision. So all of our cast, all of our crew are able to access their annual leave. So they are receiving some financial benefit. And in fact, we are also supporting all of our casual staff. These shows, involve a large number of casual employees, particularly in the backstage areas. So we are supporting them financially, but it's not a full-time wage. And the best thing that we can be doing in terms of ensuring that we're able to return to the stage is to be able to get these shows back up and running. Otherwise, we'd be forced to be, considering closing these shows and not running the full length of the contract, which none of us want to be able to be in a position of doing.
Is that a real possibility that you'd have to make that decision?
Certainly. These are commercial ventures and, there's large amounts of costs, large amounts of money at stake. And if you look around the world, the number of theatrical productions that are not returning, it's, increasing by the day. What we want to be doing here in Australia, certainly, and with our production specifically with Harry Potter and with Hamilton, is to be able to ensure a long run. And we've got to be able to, take these measures along the way so that we can be returning. With something like Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, if you look internationally, the show's about to return to the stage on the West End in October, on Broadway in November. And indeed, the producers of that show, Sonia Friedman and Colin Callender, who we work closely with on the Australian production, have taken the decision for Broadway to change that to a one-part production. Now, currently, Harry Potter in the Cursed Child here in Australia and indeed on the West End is a 2-part production. But in order to be able to survive and to be able to sustain that run, given the changing economic conditions, they've decided with the creative team to change that to a 1-part. So I think as producers, we're all trying to be creative, we're trying to be commercial and ensure that these productions remain viable for the long term.
Hey, Michael, Bruce Springsteen put on a concert in America and he said you could only turn up if you'd been vaccinated. Is that a possibility for theatre performers here?
I know that's been a discussion, certainly that many industry bodies and organisations have been having. It's certainly something that's not at the top of the agenda right now. We are encouraging all of our cast members, our crew members, to be vaccinated as soon as possible. But that's certainly an individual decision, as it is an individual decision for our audience members.
All right. And Michael, look, it's not good news to hear you talking about possibly shutting down these things, but I guess the message is you can't keep doing the opening, closing here.
No, I think our responsibility is to be pragmatic, and as an eternal optimist, it's constantly looking at ways we can sustain it and making the decisions, and sometimes tough decisions along the way, in order to ensure that we can return. We're incredibly proud of these shows. We're really grateful that shows such as Hamilton and Harry Potter were able to return to the stage earlier this year. But it makes it challenging when our businesses are turning on and off, and that's being felt right across the arts industry, right across the entertainment, hospitality and tourism industry. And we're trying to ensure that we all remain in jobs and remain in employment for the long term.
Michael Cassel, great to have you on the program. Hope it's better news we're talking about next time.
I sure hope so. Thanks, Lisa.